Okay, everybody. So we are starting our last session of the day prior to the wrap up, which is AI features in Sakai. It's a birds of a feather. So I'm going to go through a few intro slides just to kind of set the stage. But this is really meant to be more of a conversation. So once we get to that part, I will encourage you guys to either come on the microphone or enter questions and comments into the chat to participate in this session. So AI obviously has taken the world by storm. You can't, throw a rock and not hit something AI related these days. Um, so the question is, how and where should that fit in to the LMS? So learning management systems, they're rapidly integrating AI features. Um, Looking to enhance all different aspects of the learning experience. And so I've listed out a few different areas where AI is being incorporated into LMSs, just to kind of help us sort of frame the discussion for the types of things that would be useful in Sakai and the types of things that maybe we want to avoid because sometimes there's kind of too much of a good thing, right? You don't want AI in everything because you don't want to shortcut the learning process. Um, so I think there's a lot of strategic decisions that need to be made to really implement it in ways that are effective and don't, kind of create a barrier for learning versus enabling learning. And so full disclosure here, AI actually helped me generate this list. So I'm not taking complete credit for the bullets that follow. Gemini actually helped me with this a little bit just to kind of get, a list of features, and I tweaked it slightly. It's not verbatim, but yes, this I did use AI in this presentation. So keep that in mind. So one of the areas where we see a lot of AI type features is in personalized learning and adaptive pathways. So some things like, adaptive learning where the AI will give you content based on how you perform on certain things. So it will adjust for the learner. Sometimes you see things with personalized learning paths. So there's maybe custom journeys through the content. Um, there may be intelligent recommendations, things like, Amazon and Netflix, and they know what kind of content you like, and they try to serve up things that are similar to other, interests. So there's that kind of intelligent recommendation type of AI enhancement. There's also skills gap analysis where you can maybe look for patterns or have the AI look for patterns where students perform poorly and maybe provide remedial content to help address those things. So these are all kind of, and I'm not saying we should necessarily implement all these, I'm just sort of laying them out there as they're things that people are doing. Should we try to incorporate some of this into Sakai, or is some of this maybe better suited to other tools? Um, so content creation and curation. This, I think, personally is probably more appropriate for an LMS because it's more concerned with using AI to help construct the course to kind of make some shortcuts for things that are perhaps laborious tasks or repetitive tasks, or just where you're dealing with a lot of information that you want summarized, to help the instructor quickly generate things like quizzes, lesson plans, summaries, content, multimedia content, that kind of thing. Maybe sifting through, certain libraries of resources that might be good for relevant content, but it's kind of a lot, so it helps to have AI summarize some of that stuff. And then also for internationalization, there's a lot of AI-powered translation tools out there that can help make materials more accessible to students in different languages, and even students who may need like a screen reader or other types of assistance. So AI can help with those kinds of things. There's also the learner support aspect of AI, and we've seen AI chatbots and virtual assistants kind of cropping up everywhere. So things like that, if they can be trained with institution specific or LMS specific content, could be useful as sort of a 24/7 support. A lot of intelligent tutoring systems are starting to crop up, things that are a little more advanced than chatbots that help kind of provide feedback at times when the faculty member is not available. Like if a student needs help at 3 in the morning, chatbot is not going to be sleeping. Whereas I hope the instructor is getting some rest. So there's things like that. There's gamification where you can have AI enhance gamified elements, set up leaderboards and challenges, nudges, reminders. Like in Gmail, you get like a little reminder if you sent somebody an email, do you want to follow up? That kind of thing. Those sorts of nudges um, can be useful. Is that something that needs to be in the LMS? I don't know, but it's something that we see in other systems. Um, Analytics and insights. Some of these I'm not quite sure about. Again, a lot of this came suggested by AI, but predictive analytics can sometimes be a little tricky. I don't know that I would trust AI to necessarily analyze student data correctly, but it could certainly help summarize, certain things and maybe provide a report to faculty on activity that could help the faculty member make a determination. Learning analytics, dashboards that can provide educators or even students with their own activity analysis. And then sometimes in the institution level, you might want to look at the impact of certain tools on performance. And then obviously the efficiency aspect of AI. So automating routine tasks. So things that can be streamlined by having an AI do it. Things like sending reminders or, freeing people up from the administrivia type of tasks. If there are things that can be scheduled or automated that are not, that don't require a human necessarily, but can be helpful to users. Maybe those are things that could be useful in an LMS. And then obviously, you want your LMS to integrate with other systems. I don't really know how AI would necessarily facilitate that. It could, I suppose, depending on the system. This was again a suggestion, so I left it in there to see if people had thoughts on it. So I just kind of threw a bunch of information at you. So I realize that, but my purpose here is not for me to talk because I don't have answers. I just have lots of questions. So I would like to know what all of you think about AI and where is its place in the LMS. Which of these types of enhancements do you think would be useful in an LMS, and which ones do you not want to see in Sakai? So with that, I'd like to open up the floor and invite people to turn on your microphone and or camera, and let me know what are your thoughts. Don't everybody talk at once. I know it's the end of the day, so
I'll jump in real
scary
quick,
to live
Wilma.
with. Go ahead.
So I know, I've been doing a little bit of research around some of this, right? I mean, and people, I know that there's been people that have been answering, like asking the question, what, do we integrate, you know, for example, Sky's NLMS, do we integrate it with AI, right? And, um, it's, I don't, I think I mean, Anthropic just came out with a tool called MCP, which will help integrate. smoothly. Prior to that, integrating like an application previous to that was very specific and very tedious in the AI world to do that. And that was why Anthropic developed the concept of an MCP, is to help smooth that out, to make it easy. In the AI world, they call them tools. That's what they call them, right? Just like how in Sakai we call things tools, right? In the AI world, when you integrate with like some outside, like maybe you integrate with a database or you integrate with, some outside thing, the AI calls those tools. So, I think it's easier if we tried, but it's like what you said, Wilma. We have to be strategic about how do we and where do we integrate, with AI, right?
What
Yeah,
does
so
MCP stand for? What does that stand for?
I
MCP.
believe it's like model context protocol or something like that. It's basically like the way I understood it. There's a new um, data format in there. Um, think of it as like the way REST was to HTTP, right? It's kind of similar in that way, I believe. You know, with AI. Um, but I mean, and Anthropic developed that to make it simpler to integrate with AI. That's the whole reason they did it.
So we could like basically like the entity content producer, right? We could somehow hook into
AI.
feed
Yeah.
one of their models, right? Type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you still need to figure out, where to integrate and, I mean, like for example, does it just make sense to have like the way we have a search glass up at the top of the nav? Do we just have an AI button there? You know?
Yeah. And there's data protection, man. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right, right. There's all of these things are questions, and they all need to be, you know, um, they
Yeah, I
need to
mean, I
be
know Anthropic's like, it kind of vaunts itself as an ethical company, right, compared to kind of OpenAI, which is probably not a hard thing to say compared to OpenAI, but still, yeah, like, we're shipping kind of like student generated content or whatever or things off to something, are we,
right. Right. Like AI. That's the thing, right? Like AI can be used to do great things, to be helpful, and even help a student. Be helpful to a student. To understand something, right? But then, of
Yeah,
course, there's the always the flip side of that coin, that it can be used nefariously, right? It can be used to, hey AI, write my my essay question for me,
I see a couple of good suggestions in the chat. I'm just going to read these off before they get too far up in the chat. So Adrian had suggested training our own dragon for Sakai events, or I could see even like some sort of Sakai helper that helps you like figure out like how to do tasks in Sakai. Um, a chat that is trained with that kind of knowledge base. Andrea suggests that it could be used to check for plagiarism. That's another use case for AI. And Christina suggests that maybe a lessons AI explain this button that could read attached files. So that might be something that could be useful to people to help them summarize and sort of figure out what is in these files, what is in this lesson. Let's see. I see a couple other. Chuck says we should change the search to be an AI icon so people would turn it on and use it all the time. That's one way to do it. Um, Let's see. Sam asks, how do we handle students getting different explanations from different AI runs, or do you need to cache the response and serve it to all students? That's a great question. I don't know. Um, does anybody have any thoughts? I think we might need to just kind of test it out and see what happens. I know I've noticed in a lot of applications now, like Adobe Acrobat or even Gmail and other documents, it has like the AI on the side that will summarize this document for you or summarize this conversation for you. So I don't know how different are those over time. I haven't really compared, but that's certainly
Yeah,
something.
I think
Yeah.
part of the difficulty here is, even in Chrome, I mean, if you update your Chrome today and open a PDF, I just got a summary of Wilma's agenda for today, an AI summary. So this is, I have not gone and pressed any feature flags. This is sort of default Chrome. And so, I think, um, I think part of the tough part with AI is deciding, where in the stack it goes. I mean, does it need to go in Sakai if Chrome and Safari are going to bake this in um, into the browser? And, you know, I think my question around sort of AI responses is, Sakai has always been that, official place. It's where you find the official documents for the course, the official syllabus, the official grades. Um, and so, by stepping in there and saying, here's an AI summary, is this a, a cheap one-off summary that, isn't official, or is this the official instructor blessed summary? I think that's kind of the tough part. And then, one more sort of response, AI assistance to resolve accessibility issues. I mean, I think that's a great one. AI does a very good job of it now. So, if you have some messy HTML and you run it through a good LLM and ask it to correct it and, use accessibility best practices, it does a great job. If you tell it to use, Bootstrap 5, use helper classes, simplify the HTML as much as possible, it does a great job. But, is that something that we should bake in? Um, is a tougher is a tougher question.
Yeah, I see a lot of great comments in the chat. Um, Chuck notes that AI helping teachers is quite different than AI helping students. That's absolutely correct. For me, I tend to err on the side of AI helping teachers because I think it's less fraught with difficulty. But students are going to use it. They're going to use it whether it's in Sakai or not. So the question is, what needs to be in the LMS and what really is more appropriate for other places.
I mean,
See.
is it a good idea? I mean, is it a good idea to like have kind of buttons around saying, summarize this, right? When I read something the other day, right? It's some kind of report about UK recruitment, and there were all these anecdotal complaints about students coming out of university, right, and not being able to even summarize a document. It being like an elite skill now. It's like it's looked at as as an elite skill to be able to summarize a document and write a summary of it. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of scary, isn't it? Like for instance, if you encourage students to use these tools and then you drop an assignment on them, like do a critical analysis of this or whatever, right? And they just crash and burn. Have you led them down a bad path? And we've got to think about things like that, right? Like it's not so much. It's like how to be cautious around using AI. That's what you got to teach students, I think, because I mean, my wife's like a researcher, right, in the NHS, right? So a lot of the time she's doing like lit reviews and things, right? So you go off. A lit review is like, yeah, you're going to work on a research project. You're looking at existing literature. You go off and you do your lit review, right? Um, she's getting more and more shocked at how great AI is at doing like lit reviews, you know, like so. How do we? It's like a genie in a bottle, right? I mean, it feels like it's kind of out, but if we had features like that, going summarize this in lessons, summarize that, rather than just letting them read it and summarize it, is that not just like a disaster waiting to happen? I don't know. Kill it with fire. It's good to kill
Yeah,
AI
I
with
don't think
fire.
we can. You know,
Smash the
it's out
loom.
there. It's out there. It's Skynet. It's you can't kill
I
it.
know, I know, I
It's in
know,
the
I
web.
know. Yeah.
But I think actually, and this is more a philosophical
I
stance
know,
than
it's a tough one.
anything,
Eh?
but I think that AI is out there, and the best that we can do is educate students on how to use it
Yeah,
ethically and how to use it as a tool and not as a crutch.
yeah.
Um,
Say to your
and
students, we are going to test
yeah.
you on critical thinking. We are going to be giving you these regular assignments on how to summarize, whether you can summarize something or give a critique of something. So if you use AI all the time, even though we're giving you these buttons, like you're heading like down a risky path, I don't know, stuff like that. Yeah. It is philosophically, it is interesting though. I mean, it's interesting. I read something the other day by this social historian, right? And he was like, in 20 years, 80% of jobs will be gone in 20 years, including like laboring jobs, like robotic jobs, because robotics are getting so good now, like caring jobs and all that stuff. Like, I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? I mean, what a crazy thought that is. It's mad.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy thought meant to scare people and sell more of their AI services. But I don't know. I think if if you use AI a lot in coding, which I do, I've come to the opposite conclusion that um, AI is, it's wonderful at helping write software. I think it increases productivity of writing software, of making software easier to write, making tests easier to write, making integration tests, making browser tests.
Yeah,
And that ultimately we are all going to write a lot more software because of this. And um, I think colleges will be more integrated, going back to sort of Wilma's slides, I don't think AI is going to solve integration, but certainly, um, I think a lot of institutions, would love to see, um, grades sort of, grade processes, sort of all of these rough edges smoothed out. And I think AI will help people develop concepts for more software and more implementations of more software. I guess I see just a whole lot more software being written because of this.
yeah. I mean, I love Miles's question. About feature to have AI ask students questions based on the week's lesson material in the Sakai site. That's a good one. I like that one. That's a good one. Generating question banks based on the content you've uploaded to your lessons page.
Yeah, I
That'd be
think
nice.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think it can be really useful for those kinds of review type activities.
But I'll just I want to just since we didn't have our AI boot camp yesterday.
We'll just take over this last. Yeah, go
Right.
ahead. Go ahead.
Exactly, right? I mean, I've had good experiences too with AI, but nowhere near, I would say, as optimistic as Sam is about it. Um, because I would say more than 50% of anything that I asked AI to do, it failed. Like failed, bad, just wrong answer, wrong thing. But then you start to ask it, well, help me understand sometimes it will at least tell you where the issue lies, right? And that's helpful, right? So I think it helps you, and I think it's a tool, and I think every developer should get used to using it. But and I think it's probably a lot easier to use AI in a green field, meaning when you're starting a project. I think it's probably going to be better there. But
I would,
I
I
don't
would,
I
I
don't
would
have that same
caution.
optimism that you have, Sam.
Here's my caution at sort of taking this point of view that um, during the first year of sort of LLM explosion, you would hear a lot of people say, "Oh, but it hallucinates, and so we can't trust it," and it's kind of
Right.
writing it off, and it really doesn't hallucinate nearly as much as it did 2 years ago.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
And 2 years
I feel the same way.
ago, compared to today is Claude Code and the very latest are pretty incredible at coding compared to 2 years ago. And so sort of taking this sort of approach, I mean, I think we should all see it as, a master's or PhD level, computer scientist versed in, you know, um, deep spring, hibernate, all of the components that are widely known. It's a pretty incredible assistant that if you can guide it well.
Yeah.
Um,
But you have to also remember, Sam, that it's also using the internet, right, as it's where it has learned content from.
you got
And
it.
the internet isn't always correct. So, and I find it really funny. Like sometimes I'll be working with AI and I'll say, do this, and it goes off and do it, and I say, and I'll say, well, but that's not correct because of this, and then it'll come back and say, oh yeah, you're right, it's not correct. Let me redo this. I love that part about it.
Well,
But
you
what's
just
that?
you just trained it, and in
Yep.
3 months or 6 months, whenever your new training gets incorporated,
Yeah.
you just made a better AI.
Yeah,
So keep on
and
doing
I
that.
and I agree with you that moving forward, it's probably going to only get better. I totally agree with you on that. I'm just still like I've thrown a lot of things at it. For example, I could name positives where I'm like, oh, hey, I want you to write this test for me, and it would go and it did a really good job, and it wrote a great test for me, wrote great several tests for me, and it did awesome. But then I was doing something where I said, for example, in the date manager, there was no test framework there, right? So I asked it, I said, we need to implement a test framework here. And I even gave it an example. I said, like in assignments. And it went off and just did something horrible, janky. And I was like, what are you doing? I said, just look at assignments and go do what I asked you to do. And it was horrible. I did it. I implemented it. Then once it was implemented, and after I got the first test in there, I said, now go implement me a test for this, this, and this. And it went and did it just fine. Right. But it couldn't do the first part of it. So I'm just saying, like, I'm not coming down on it. Don't think, you
You
made
just
it to be.
described having a junior developer on by your side. A great junior developer, by the way, that
Yeah.
learned from the mistakes and then did right. So,
All right.
congrats.
Well, we're actually a little over time since we started late, so I am going to have to cut you guys off there. But I will invite everybody that's listening to come back for Dr. Chuck's podcast at some point to be focused on some of these kinds of conversations where we can dive into it a little bit more. But I did see several great ideas in the chat about ways in which it could be leveraged again strategically in the LMS to help instructors and to even potentially help students in ways that are still conducive to learning and not a shortcut to learning. Um, so I don't think we have time for questions, but I do want to thank you all for participating in our Birds of a Feather. So I'm going to actually roll right into our last bit of the day, which is our wrap up and prizes. 'Cause